We're looking forward to a massive game tonight, Mr. Danny Murphy. Arsenal hosting Manchester City. And of course, many Arsenal fans believing this is crucially important in terms of them going on, winning this, and then winning the Premier League itself. So, Danny, is it a Premier League Cup final tonight that we're going to see?
It's a biggie. It's a biggie. I don't think it's the be-all and the end-all for either. I think if Arsenal beat them, I don't think that's the end for Man City. And I think if City beat them, I don't think it's the end for Arsenal. But it'll be a huge psychological blow to whichever one loses. It means you know, for Arsenal, you start to think, oh my God, this run's going on, and here comes City. And for City, it'll be just create that gap.
I think the difference between the two sides is that Man City have been here, seen it, and they'll grind out these results, and they'll grind out, and they'll start to double down, and that's what they're starting to do now. I think if Manchester City win tonight, I think they'll win the league.
I think there's less pressure on
City. If Arsenal win tonight, I'm not entirely sure the race is over, because I just think there's so many young players at Arsenal that are beginning to become a little bit overwhelmed to a certain extent. Not overwhelmed because they're not big enough to cope with the situation, but inexperienced in the scenario.
Right, but you think if City win tonight, they win the league?
I do, yeah. I do. I think the likely outcome is probably a draw, but I think if City were to win tonight, the wheels start turning. It starts to crank up now, and City start to get into that rhythm, into that mode of operating that we're so familiar with, and grind out results. And I don't mean grind them out in terms of win games they shouldn't win. I mean get into that rhythm where they start beating everybody and beating them very, very
exactly.
comfortably.
They've been there and done it. They know how to do it, Danny. So if they win there tonight, as Simon says, all roads lead to the finish line if you're a City fan.
I think that would be fair. I think that would be a fair assumption to make. Yeah, I mean, not a guarantee, of course, but it's a huge one. I think for Arsenal, it's about carrying on. Don't forget why you are where you are. Don't play any differently to what you've. Just because you drew with Brentford and lost to Everton, you don't change what you've been doing all this time. You know, you're talking about little differences in games that take away the result from you, but generally their football's been of a really high level and playing the right way. I don't think they'll change at all. I don't think they'll do. I don't think you'll see some sort of master plan from Arteta to stop City. I mean, you might see a different plan from from Pep, because he changed.
But you're seeing certain younger players starting to come right into the spotlight. Saliba's making a few more mistakes. Nketiah isn't really the answer for me. He's a good player, but unless he gets the ball exactly where he wants to, he's not as effective as he can, as other players could be in that position. I just think that Arsenal are ahead of schedule in expectation, ahead of schedule in terms of the team and all its component parts, but they're there.
Yeah.
So cometh the moment, you've got to take it. So I'm not suggesting that they should be grateful for if they finish second in the league, because they're top of the league right now. But Man City they're at it again. Despite Pep Guardiola trying to spin us a yarn that, you know, what's our motivation? Oh, your motivation is because you're outstanding footballers and that's what you do.
Do you know what? I understand the feeling that this Rolls Royce of a team, Man City, could start, you know, revving their engines again, if you like. But actually, when you break it down, the second half against Villa was a bit lax. Villa had a lot of chances, but the game against Tottenham, they created very little. Tottenham beat them, and not a Tottenham side playing particularly well.
But Tottenham did a last time.
I know. I'm just giving the reality of if I'm in the Arsenal camp. I'm not. I'm being careful to make sure the players understand they're not coming up against this team that's 110 on the spin and flying.
Danny, but they know this.
Haaland might be missing.
Yeah, true. They know this. So tonight's match is the 9th meeting between Pep and Arteta, and Pep's won 7 of the 8 so far. So, I mean, he holds the sway hugely. Very keen to get your take on this, though. Because, of course, we heard from Arteta before this game. We heard from Guardiola as well. But Guardiola spoke to the media and began it in a completely different fashion that surprised many people. Of course, all the talk in recent days has been Manchester City's alleged breaches of financial regulations. And Pep said a few things about that the other day. He took aim at Steven Gerrard's mistake in the match between Liverpool and Chelsea all those seasons ago. And again, Liverpool, going so close to winning a title, ended up not winning it on that occasion. And Pep decided to make a full apology for that.
Before I start the press conference, I want to say something. I apologize to Steven Gerrard for my unnecessary and stupid comments I said the last time about him. He knows how I admire him and his career, what he has done for this country that I am living in training session. I am training, I am a shape of myself. What I said, because he doesn't deserve it. I truly believe my comments, what I said, in my previous conference about I defend my club, but I didn't represent my club well, putting his name in this stupid comment. So I apologize. I said to him personally, but like I comment publicly, I have to do it here as well. So I'm so sorry for him, from Alex, his wife, kids, family, because it was stupid.
I'm sorry, says Pep. Did he need to do that, Simon?
Well, I think there's something to be said for it, because also I think there's a little bit of contrived and confected apology in some of it, because I think that Manchester City want to be the victim of this situation. Everyone's got an agenda against them. When he starts throwing around analogies about Steven Gerrard, he loses the high ground that he wanted to take with his Vito Corleone impression. You know, in the press conference he did last week.
Yeah,
I think it's a genuine apology.
Yeah,
I think it's an honest apology. I think it shows a side of Pep Guardiola that people should appreciate and respect.
He name-checked Daniel Levy at the time. Does he owe him an apology too?
Different context. You know, you're talking about a player's error on a pitch against a contrived agenda that they believe they're victims of. They genuinely believe, the Man City group and Pep Guardiola and all their fans, that there's a conspiracy theory from UEFA, from the British judicial system, from the Premier League, from 19 clubs, and from Uncle Tom Cobley to do them down. So that, with that in mind, Daniel Levy forms part of that. So he won't apologise for that, but he will apologise for a genuine error from a footballer on a pitch and using that as an example to highlight.
It was a
how
bizarre
ridiculous.
analogy, wasn't it?
It was a bizarre one. You know Steven Gerrard very well, Danny. Will he have been affected, hurt by what Guardiola said?
No, I think he probably just would have thought, why has he gone there? Come on. But Stevie's the type, when he found him a play, he'd have taken it. He'd have let it go. I mean, we've all said things we regret. We've all had to hold our hands up now and again. I think you've got to choose the right moment. You shouldn't be walking around life apologising for everything that comes out your mouth.
But that's right to do.
That was right to do.
He's a big voice, and it was a big subject matter, and it takes a man to stand up and say, I'm not just going to apologise on a QT, I'm going to apologise in the public domain. I said it in a public domain.
Sure.
And whilst I'm not apologising to the media, and I'm not apologising to those that listen to it, and I don't think you need to extrapolate it out, because I'm sure, you know, Steven Gerrard's wife isn't walking around crying her eyes out because of something that he said.
She wouldn't care.
About his.
To be fair to Guardiola, Simon, he could have made the apology to Gerrard, as Danny says, over the phone, and not mentioned it to the media.
But it's a public domain business, and he made the comments in public, so it's right. The principle of what he said was right.
Who wins it tonight, Danny? Who wins it?
I'm with Simon. I think a draw's an obvious result. I'll tell you who will want to win it. And from being at Tottenham, this is hard to say, but and I said it before, and people want to laugh at me and that, but for the good of football, I hope Arsenal beat them. And that's not to do with the financial irregularities of or the accusation. That's nothing to do with it. It's just this monopoly Man City have had on the Premier League and this constant domination. I know Liverpool have gone toe-to-toe with them for years, but it would be, I think, bloody good for football if Arsenal get over the line.
I'm inclined to agree with that. Simon, are you? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we'll be there. Mr. Jordan and I'll be there, not sitting beside each other tonight, but we will be there, and we will be talking about it tomorrow. Arsenal against Manchester City, a massive game tonight, absolutely massive, and you can hear it play out, of course, and we will be looking at it big time, not only today, but tomorrow in the aftermath of it.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.